What if Kendrick was signed to Young Money instead of Drake? In a world where record deals decide dynasties and radio play determines legacies, where teenage rappers carried the weight of entire cities on their shoulders and executives smile with intentions that could split careers, one label made a decision that changed everything. Not who they signed, but who they chose first. And in choosing first, they chose wrong. Not wrong for them, wrong for him. His name was Kendrick Lamar Duckworth. He wore a plain black hoodie that moved like armor against a world that had been trying to kill him since birth. His eyes held the gray stillness of Compton at 3 a.m, that hour when the sirens stop and the streets hold their breath and the only sound is your own heartbeat, wondering if tomorrow will come. And when he walked into Cash Money Studios in Miami, summer of 2008, an entire alternate universe walked with him. A universe where everything he was supposed to become got swallowed by the machine that was supposed to amplify it. The flight from Los Angeles had taken 4 hours. Kendrick spent 3 of them staring out the window at clouds that looked like cotton stretched thin across blue skin. The 4th hour, he spent reading a worn copy of the Bible his mother had pressed into his hands at the airport, her fingers trembling with the kind of hope that breaks your heart because you know you might not be able to carry it. He had marked certain passages, psalms that spoke about deliverance, proverbs that warned about the dangers of quick riches, a verse from Ecclesiastes that his grandmother had quoted so often it felt like family history. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. He did not fully understand what that meant yet, but he would. The industry would teach him, slowly, painfully, the way all true lessons are taught. Baby, his mother had said at the airport, her voice catching on the word the way it always did when she was trying not to. Cry. This is your moment. Everything we've been through, everything this neighborhood took from us. You bring it back, okay? You bring it all back. He had nodded, had held her close, and smelled the cocoa butter she had been using since he was small enough to fit in her lap, had felt her heart beating against his chest, and wondered if she knew how terrified he was, how the confidence everyone saw was just a mask stretched over doubt so deep it felt like drowning. She had pressed a $20 bill into his palm. Emergency money, she called it, in case you need to get home fast. In case they turned out to be wolves instead of shepherds, he still had that 20, would keep it for years, a talisman against the darkness that was coming. The plane landed. The Miami heat hit him like a wall of wet concrete. And somewhere in the distance, in a studio that smelled like money and ambition and decisions that would reshape an entire genre, Lil Wayne was waiting. Not waiting for Kendrick. Specifically, not yet. Wayne was waiting for the next thing, the next sound, the next voice that would justify the machine he had built and the label he had convinced Birdman to let him run. Young Money was supposed to be different, was supposed to be about artists, not products, about vision, not just viability, but the industry has a way of making idealists into accountants, has a way of turning every dream into a spreadsheet, has a way of whispering compromise until it sounds like wisdom. Wayne had learned that lesson himself, had watched the industry chew up artists he admired and spit out shells of who they used to be, had promised himself he would do things differently, but promises made in youth have a way of dissolving in the acid of experience. And Wayne was no longer young. He sat in the corner of Studio A, invisible in the space between industry politics and pure artistic instinct. His dreads hung past his shoulders like ropes he had used to climb out of poverty and into legend. His eyes, red from sessions that stretched into days, held the exhaustion of someone who had been carrying an entire genre on his back since he was 15 years old. He was listening to demos, had been listening for 6 hours. Most of them sounded the same flows borrowed from whoever was hot that month, the same subject matter about money and women and violence presented without craft or perspective, the same hunger dressed up as confidence when really it was just desperation wearing a costume. Wayne could spot desperation from across the room, had been desperate himself once, had learned that desperation made you easy to control, easy to manipulate, easy to sign to contracts that looked like opportunities and felt like chains. He lit another blunt, let the smoke fill his lungs and his thoughts, wondered if the next great voice existed or if he had been fooling himself, chasing ghosts of what hip-hop used to feel like when he was young enough to believe it could save the world. Then Kendrick's demo came through the speakers. The room changed, not physically. The walls stayed where they were. The mixing board kept blinking its multicolored confirmation of sound waves being translated into something permanent. But the air shifted, the energy recalibrated. Wayne sat up straighter for the first time in hours and felt something he had not felt since he first heard himself on the radio as a teenager. Recognition, not of Kendrick specifically. Recognition of the thing that separated artists from entertainers. The thing that made some voices matter beyond their moment. The thing Wayne had been chasing since he first picked up a microphone and decided that words could be weapons against a world that wanted to keep him small. "Play that again," Wayne said. The engineer, a tired man named Marcus, who had been mixing hits since the 90s, looked surprised. They had listened to over 200 demos that day. Wayne had not asked to replay a single one. "The whole thing?" Marcus asked. "The whole thing." The demo was 7 minutes long, a track called Hub City Threat that Kendrick had recorded in a closet in Compton using equipment that cost less than Wayne's watch. The production was rough, the mix was amateur, but the voice, the perspective, the way Kendrick stacked syllables like a mason, building something meant to last centuries. There was a section in the middle where Kendrick switched flows 4 times in 8 bars. Each switch was a different character, a different perspective, a different voice from the neighborhood speaking through his body like possession. Wayne had heard versatility before, had prided himself on his own ability to shapeshift, but this was something else. This was someone who had absorbed so many lives that they all lived inside him now, waiting to be released. Wayne closed his eyes and listened, really listened, not as an executive calculating market potential, not as a competitor measuring threat level, just as someone who loved rap enough to recognize when it was being done at a level that made everything else feel like practice. The demo ended. The room was silent. Even the equipment seemed to be holding its breath. "Get him on a plane," Wayne said. "Tonight. I want to meet him before anybody else does." "You know who that is?" Marcus asked. "That is the kid from Compton, the one Top Dog has been developing. Word is Jay is looking at him too. Atlantic has been sniffing around, even Aftermath sent somebody to check him out. Then we better move fast." Wayne pulled out his phone and started making calls. The machine that would eventually consume Kendrick Lamar was already beginning to turn. In Compton, Kendrick was eating dinner with his mother when his phone rang. The kitchen was small. The table was smaller. They had bought it at a garage sale when Kendrick was 12, and his mother had refinished it herself, sanding away the scratches and painting it a blue that reminded her of the ocean she had only seen in pictures. It was the nicest thing they owned. Not expensive, just cared for, just loved in the way poor people love things because they know how hard they are to replace. On the table sat a meal of chicken and rice, cooked the way his mother had learned from her own mother, who had learned from hers. 4 generations of survival encoded in a recipe that used every part of the bird because waste was a luxury they could not afford. The smell filled the small kitchen with something that felt like safety, like history, like home. His mother's name was Paula, but everyone called her Mama Duck. She had raised Kendrick and his siblings on wages that never quite covered the bills. In a neighborhood where the sound of gunshots was so common that children learned to sleep through it. She had buried friends, had visited others in prison, had watched her own husband struggle with the streets until the streets won, and he disappeared into a system designed to swallow black men whole. But she had also prayed every night, every morning, over every meal and every bill she could not pay, and every news report about another young man from Compton who would not be coming home. She had prayed for her children with a ferocity that felt like war, had kneeled on carpet worn thin by her knees, and spoken to God like he was standing in the room, like he owed her something for all she had endured. And now, watching Kendrick answer his phone with an expression she could not read, she prayed again, silently, urgently, with the desperation of a mother who knew that opportunity and danger often wore the same face. "Hello?" Kendrick said. The voice on the other end introduced itself as Cortez Bryant, manager, Young Money Entertainment, calling on behalf of Lil Wayne, who wanted to fly Kendrick to Miami immediately. Kendrick's hand tightened on the phone. His knuckles went pale against his dark skin. His mother watched him the way she had watched him his whole life, with love that was also fear, with pride that was also terror, with the knowledge that her son was special in ways that could save him or destroy him depending on which doors opened. "Can I call you back in 5 minutes?" Kendrick asked. He hung up before Cortez could answer. "Mama," he said. "I heard." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Lil Wayne, that is big, baby. That is bigger than big. I know. What are you going to do?" Kendrick looked at the kitchen, at the blue table his mother had made beautiful through nothing but effort and care, at the Bible still open beside his plate, the pages worn soft from use, at his mother's face, which held 17 years of sacrifice in every line and wrinkle. He thought about what this opportunity meant, not just for him, for her, for his siblings, for the neighborhood that had watched him grow up and was waiting to see if he would make it or become another statistic, for every person who had ever believed in him, who had ever told him his words mattered, who had ever seen something in his eyes that looked like a future. "I'm going to go," he said, "but I need you to pray for me. Pray that I remember who I am. Pray that they do not change me." His mother stood, crossed the small space between them, put her hands on his face the way she had when he was small, when the world felt too big and she was the only safe harbor he knew. "Baby," she said, "they cannot change what God made. They can only reveal it. You go to Miami, you show them what Compton built, and you come home the same person who left. You hear me?" "Yes, ma'am." She kissed his forehead. Then she went to her bedroom and closed the door. Kendrick could hear her praying through the thin walls, could hear her voice rising and falling in conversation with something larger than circumstance, could hear her asking God to protect her son from the wolves dressed as shepherds who populated the music industry. He called Cortez back. "I will be on the next flight," Kendrick said, "but I have some conditions." Cortez laughed, the kind of laugh people give when they think they are dealing with someone who does not understand the rules. "Kid, you are not in a position to have conditions. Wayne wants to meet you. That is the opportunity of a lifetime. Then it should be easy to accommodate my conditions." Silence, then a different kind of attention in Cortez's voice, the recognition that he was dealing with someone who might be harder to handle than the usual desperate artist. "What conditions?" "I keep my publishing, I keep creative control, and I bring my team with me. Dave free, all of them." More silence. Then, "We will see you tomorrow, Kendrick. We can discuss the details then." The call ended. Kendrick looked at his phone for a long time. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Somewhere closer, his mother was still praying. He packed a bag with 3 changes of clothes, his notebook, and the Bible his mother had given him at the airport. Then he lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling and wondered if opportunity was supposed to feel this much like danger. The walls of his room were covered with posters. Tupac, Biggie, Nas, Jay, the canon of greatness that he had studied since childhood, memorizing flows and analyzing bars the way other kids studied multiplication tables. He knew every lyric from Illmatic, could recite entire verses from Me Against the World, had written his own responses to songs that had shaped him, imaginary conversations with artists who would never know his name. Now Lil Wayne knew his name, the industry knew his name. The future he had been working towards since he was 7 years old was suddenly real and immediate and terrifying. He did not sleep, could not sleep, just lay there in the dark, listening to his mother pray, and the neighborhood breathed, and his own heart beat with something that might have been excitement or might have been fear. By morning, he still did not know which. The flight left at 6 in the morning. Kendrick did not sleep. Miami opened like a wound in the humidity. Kendrick stepped off the plane into air so thick it felt like breathing through a wet towel. The sun was already punishing, bouncing off concrete and glass in ways that made him squint. Los Angeles had heat, but this was different. This was tropical. This was the kind of climate that bred things you could not predict. He stood on the tarmac for a moment, just taking it in. The palm trees in the distance, the smell of jet fuel and salt air, the sound of a city that operated by different rules than the one he had grown up in. Everything was bright here, too bright, like someone had turned up the saturation on the world and forgotten to turn it back down. A driver was waiting for him at baggage claim, a large man in a black suit holding a sign with Kendrick's name spelled wrong. Kendrick, it said, no K at the end. Already, before he had even begun, they had started changing him. He thought about correcting the mistake, thought about saying something, but what would be the point? It was just a letter, just a small erosion of identity, the kind of thing that happens all the time and means nothing, except it did mean something. He just did not know it yet. The car was a black SUV with tinted windows so dark the interior felt like a cave. Kendrick sat in the back and watched Miami slide past. The palm trees that lined the highways, the pastel buildings that looked like someone had dipped them in sherbet, the water, visible occasionally between structures, blue and beautiful and completely foreign to someone who had grown up landlocked in California concrete. He had never seen the ocean before, not really. Had glimpsed the Pacific from a distance on school trips, but never stood on a beach, never felt sand between his toes, never understood what people meant when they talked about the vastness of it. Miami had water everywhere, bays and canals, and bridges over blue that stretched to horizons. It made him feel small in a way that Compton never had. In Compton, the world was bounded by streets and blocks and territories. Here, the world opened up in ways that felt both liberating and terrifying. The driver did not speak, did not ask questions, just drove with the focused silence of someone who had done this many times before, delivering hopeful artists to meetings that would determine their futures. Kendrick wondered how many of those artists had succeeded, how many had failed, how many had come through this same SUV with dreams that ended up crushed by the same machine that was now reaching for him. The studio was in a compound, high walls, security gate, the kind of place where success lived after it had made enough money to need protection. Kendrick had seen wealth before, had watched rap videos where artists showed off their possessions like trophies. But this was different. This was operational wealth, the kind that built things rather than just displaying them. Guards checked his ID at the gate. Cameras tracked his movement up the driveway. By the time the SUV stopped at the main building, Kendrick felt like he had been processed, cataloged, reduced to a data point in someone's system. The driver dropped him at the entrance and disappeared without a word. Kendrick stood there for a moment, his duffel bag hanging from his shoulder, feeling very young and very far from home. The building was white, impossibly white, the kind of white that required constant maintenance that existed only through obsessive cleaning and the money to pay for it. The doors were glass and gold. The lobby beyond them was marble and mirrors. A woman appeared, professional, polished. Her name was Megan, and she handled artist relations for Young Money. She smiled at Kendrick, with teeth so white they looked manufactured, and led him through hallways that smelled like new carpet and ambition. Wayne is finishing up a session, she explained as they walked. He should be ready for you in about 30 minutes. Can I get you anything? Water? Something to eat? I'm fine, Kendrick said. But he was not fine. He was terrified. The fear had settled into his stomach like a stone, and every step felt like walking toward a cliff whose edge he could not see. Megan deposited him in a lounge. Leather couches that probably cost more than his mother's car. Gold records on the walls, each one representing millions of dollars and the dreams of someone who had made it. a refrigerator stocked with drinks that cost more than his mother's grocery budget for a month. He sat down and did not touch anything, just waited, just tried to remember how to breathe, just wondered if everyone who sat in this room felt the same thing, or if fear was something unique to him. 30 minutes became 45, then 60, then 90. Kendrick understood what was happening, had read about power games in the music industry, had heard stories from older rappers about how executives like to make you wait, like to establish hierarchy through something as simple as minutes ticking past. He used the time to write, pulled his notebook from his bag and started putting down verses. Not about anything specific, just observations. The way the light hit the gold records, the way silence in a rich place felt different from silence in a poor one, the way his heart was beating against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He wrote about the driver who did not speak, about his name spelled wrong on a sign, about his mother praying and his father absent, and the neighborhood that had raised him into something the industry now wanted to purchase. By the time the door finally opened, he had filled 4 pages. Lil Wayne was smaller than he looked on television, shorter, thinner. The dreads were the same, and the tattoos that covered his face like scripture written in ink. But the thing that struck Kendrick most was the eyes. Wayne's eyes looked older than his body, looked like they had seen centuries compressed into decades, looked like they knew things that could not be spoken, only survived. Kendrick Lamar, Wayne said. His voice was raspy from years of smoking and rapping and living at a pace that would have killed most people. "I've been waiting to meet you." Kendrick stood, extended his hand. Wayne's grip was firm but brief, the handshake of someone who measured connection in different ways than touch. "Your demo," Wayne said, sitting down on the couch opposite Kendrick. "That Hub City Threat joint. Where did that come from?" "Compton," Kendrick said. "Same place everything comes from." Wayne smiled. It was a small smile, private, like a door opening just enough to glimpse what was behind it. "Nah," he said. "I know where your body is from. I'm asking where your words are from." That demo sounded like someone who has been writing since before they knew what writing was, like someone who cannot stop even if they wanted to. Kendrick thought about the question, thought about his childhood bedroom where he had filled notebooks until his hand cramped, thought about his father's absence and his mother's presence and the way Compton had simultaneously tried to kill him and made him who he was. "I started writing when I was 7, Kendrick said. "I had a teacher who told me that my thoughts mattered, that what I saw and felt was worth documenting. So I documented everything. The shootings, the funerals, the way people who had nothing still found ways to love each other. I never stopped." Wayne nodded slowly. His red eyes studied Kendrick with an intensity that felt like being read, like Wayne was flipping through pages of Kendrick's soul and making notes in the margins. "You know what I hear in your music?" Wayne asked. "I hear someone who is not trying to impress anyone, someone who is just telling the truth because they cannot do anything else. That is rare. Most artists are performing. You are just being." Kendrick did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing, just waited. Wayne leaned forward. The leather of the couch creaked under his slight weight. "I want to sign you," he said. "Young Money, full deal. We will put the machine behind you. Promotion, features, everything we got. But I need to know something first." "What? Can you handle it?" "The fame, the pressure, the industry trying to turn you into something you are not." "Because I have seen this before, Kendrick. I've seen artists with your kind of gift get swallowed by all of this, get changed, get broken. Can you stay who you are when everyone around you is trying to make you into something else?" Kendrick thought about his mother's prayer, about the blue table in their kitchen, about the Bible in his bag that he had read so many times the pages were soft as cloth. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I know I have to try. I have a city that needs to see someone make it without losing themselves. I have a mother who sacrificed everything for this. I have stories that need to be told. I cannot promise I will not change, but I can promise I will fight to stay real." Wayne's smile widened. For a moment, he looked almost young again. almost like the teenager who had started rapping before he was old enough to drive. "That is the right answer," he said, "because anyone who promises they will not change is lying. The question is whether you change in the right direction." He stood, extended his hand again. "Welcome to Young Money, Kendrick. Let us make something the world has never heard before." They shook hands, and somewhere in that gesture, in that moment, a path opened that would lead Kendrick Lamar toward everything he had ever wanted, and then away from it. But he did not know that yet. No one did. The future is a fog that only clears in hindsight, and hindsight was still years away, waiting like a patient creditor to collect what was owed. The signing happened fast, too fast, the kind of fast that does not leave room for thinking, only reacting. Lawyers appeared, contracts materialized, numbers were discussed in rooms that Kendrick was not invited into, and when the paperwork was finally presented to him, it was a stack of documents so thick it felt like holding a phone book. His mother had flown in for the signing, had worn her best dress, the purple one she saved for church, and had sat beside him at the conference table with her hand on his arm. Her grip was tight, protective, like she was trying to anchor him to something solid while the current of the industry tried to sweep him away. The conference room was on the top floor of a building that overlooked the bay. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Miami stretched out like a promise. All blue water and white buildings, and the kind of wealth that Kendrick had never touched but was now being offered access to. Cortez walked them through the key points, the advance, the album commitments, the promotional obligations, the percentage splits that would determine who got what when the music started making money. The advance was more money than Kendrick had ever seen, more than his mother had made in 5 years of working double shifts, enough to pay off bills that had been accumulating since his childhood, enough to move his family out of Compton, enough to feel safe for the first time in his life. He tried to focus on the details, on the clauses and sub-clauses and legal language that seemed designed to confuse rather than clarify, but the number kept floating in his mind. The advance, the proof that someone believed in him enough to bet real money. "Your publishing," Cortez explained, "will be split 50-50 with the label. Standard deal for a new artist." "I wanted to keep my publishing," Kendrick said. "I mentioned that on the phone." Cortez smiled, the same smile he had used on 100 artists before, sympathetic but firm, the smile of someone who knew the rules and was not going to break them for anyone. "Kendrick," he said, "you are a new artist, unproven commercially. We are taking a significant risk investing in you. The publishing split is how we offset that risk. Once you have demonstrated your commercial viability, we can renegotiate." Kendrick looked at his mother. She looked back with eyes that held questions she did not know how to ask. Neither of them understood the full implications of what was being discussed. Neither of them knew that publishing was where the real money lived, that the artists who got rich were the ones who owned their words, and the artists who stayed struggling were the ones who signed them away. Publishing meant ownership of the songs, meant royalties every time a song played on the radio, or was used in a commercial, or was streamed on a platform, meant the difference between building wealth and just making money, meant the difference between legacy and forgetting. But Kendrick did not know that, not really, not in the way that mattered. He knew the word, knew it was important. But the advance was so large and the opportunity was so real, and his mother was sitting beside him in her church dress, believing that her prayers had finally been answered. "What about creative control?" Kendrick asked. "You will have input on your projects," Cortez said, "final approval on singles, but the label reserves the right to suggest direction, to bring in outside writers and producers if we feel it serves the project. So I do not have creative control. You have creative partnership. We are all working toward the same goal here, Kendrick, making the best music possible, making you a star." Kendrick felt his mother's hand tighten on his arm, felt the weight of her hope pressing down on him. She had sacrificed everything for this moment, had worked double shifts and gone without so that he could have notebooks and studio time and a chance at something better than Compton streets. How could he say no? How could He walked away from the only door that had ever opened. He signed the contract, watched the pen move across paper, watched his future take shape in blue ink on white pages, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that he had just given away something he would spend years trying to get back. But the voice was quiet, and the moment was loud, and his mother was crying with happiness, and Wayne was shaking his hand and talking about albums and tours and everything that was about to happen. "Welcome to the family," Wayne said. "You're going to change everything." Kendrick smiled, tried to feel the triumph he was supposed to feel, tried to ignore the stone in his stomach that had not dissolved despite the celebration. Outside, Miami continued to sweat, and in Toronto, a former child actor named Aubrey Graham was checking his email for the 100th time that day, waiting for a response from the same label that had just signed someone else. The email never came. Drake found out about Kendrick signing the same way everyone else did, through blogs. He was sitting in his mother's apartment in Toronto, the same apartment he had grown up in, surrounded by the modest furniture and family photos that documented a life of struggle and survival. His mother, Sandy, was at work. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of traffic outside and the sound of his own breathing. His phone was open to a hip-hop news site that had just broken the story. Young Money signs. Compton phenom Kendrick Lamar. Sources say Wayne personally recruited the rising star. Drake read the headline 3 times, read the article twice, felt something cold settle into his chest and refused to leave. He had been talking to Young Money for months, had sent demos, had taken meetings, had flown to Miami on his own dime to audition for the people who were supposed to change his life, had allowed himself to believe that the door was opening, that his years of grinding on Canadian television and recording music in basements were finally going to pay off. And now this, some kid from Compton, some unknown who had appeared from nowhere and taken the spot Drake had been working towards since he was 16 years old. He threw his phone across the room, watched it bounce off the couch and land face down on the carpet. Then he sat there in the silence and tried to figure out what to do with the rage building inside him. The thing about rejection is that it does not just hurt in the moment, it echoes. It ripples backward through your history and forward through your future, making you question every choice that led you to this point and every choice that might lead you away from it. Drake questioned everything. He questioned the years on Degrassi, playing a character in a wheelchair while secretly wanting to be a rapper. He questioned the demos he had sent to every label that would listen. He questioned the confidence he had built like a wall between himself and doubt. What if he was not good enough? What if his music was exactly what he feared it was? Soft and emotional and unmarketable in an industry that valued hardness and street credibility. What if Kendrick Lamar was simply better? He picked up his phone. The screen was cracked from the impact with the couch, a spider web of fractures that made everything look broken. He opened his recording app, started writing. The words came from a place he did not usually access, a dark place, a wounded place, the place where rejection lives and festers and transforms into either bitterness or determination depending on what you do with it. He wrote about wanting something so badly you could taste it, about watching someone else get what should have been yours, about the loneliness of being an outsider in an industry that valued belonging, about his father's absence and his mother's presence, and the way Toronto had made him into something that did not fit anywhere. He wrote for 4 hours straight, did not eat, did not drink, just poured everything he was feeling onto the page and into his phone's microphone. The result was not polished, was not radio ready, but it was honest in a way his previous work had never been. It was the beginning of something new, a sound that would eventually make him one of the biggest artists in the world. But in that moment, sitting in his mother's apartment with a cracked phone and a broken dream, it just felt like survival. His mother came home at 7, found him still writing, sat down beside him and put her arm around his shoulders without asking what was wrong. She knew, she always knew, had been reading his moods since he was small enough to hold. They went with someone else, Drake said. I know, baby. I saw the news. I thought I had it. I thought this was my time. Sandy was quiet for a moment. Her arm tightened around him. She smelled like the restaurant where she worked, cooking oil and spices and the effort it took to keep. Then both fed. Maybe it is not about timing, she said. Maybe it is about patience, about finding your own path instead of trying to walk someone else's. What if there is no path? What if I have been deluding myself this whole time? Then you find a new dream. But I do not think that is what is happening here. I have heard your music, Aubrey. I have seen how people react to it. You have something real. Just because one label did not see it does not mean no one will. Drake leaned into his mother's embrace, let himself feel small for a moment, let himself be a child again, seeking comfort from the one person who had never stopped believing in him. What do I do now? He asked. What you have always done, Sandy said. You keep going. You make more music. You find another way. And you remember that the people who succeed are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who refuse to stop trying. Drake nodded, wiped his eyes, looked at his cracked phone with its 4 hours of raw motion waiting to be shaped into something. His mother was right. There was always another way. The question was whether he had the strength to find it. He would, eventually, but that is a different part of the story. For now, what matters is that while Kendrick Lamar was celebrating his signing in Miami, Drake was in Toronto learning the lesson that would define his career. Sometimes the closed door is a gift. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is the best thing that can happen for you. He just could not see it yet. The first few months were magic. Kendrick moved into an apartment in Miami that Young Money provided. It was nicer than anywhere he had ever lived. 2 bedrooms, a view of the water, air conditioning that actually worked, a kitchen with appliances that looked like they had never been used, a bathroom with tiles so white they hurt his eyes. He would wake up some mornings and just stand at the window watching boats drift across the bay, unable to believe that this was real, that he had escaped, that the kid from Compton who used to fall asleep to gunshots was now falling asleep to the sound of waves. The bed was too soft at first. He could not sleep on it. Had grown up on mattresses that sagged in the middle, that had springs that poked through worn fabric. This bed felt like falling into clouds, like drowning in comfort, like something he had not earned. He called his mother every day, described everything in detail that probably bored her, but that she listened to anyway, because she wanted to share in his joy, the view, the restaurants, the studio where he was recording music with budgets that seemed unlimited. Baby, she would say, I am so proud of you, so proud. But there was always something in her voice, a hesitation, a worry she could not quite name, like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Wayne put him in sessions with the best producers. Dr. Dre showed interest. Pharrell sent beats. Timbaland offered to collaborate. The machinery of success that Kendrick had only dreamed about was suddenly available to him, and he tried to use it wisely. He spent the first month just absorbing, sitting in sessions, watching how Wayne worked, learning the rhythms of an industry he had only observed from the outside. Wayne worked constantly, would record for 18 hours straight, then sleep for 4, then start again. His output was legendary. His focus was inhuman. He moved through beats like someone possessed, leaving finished tracks in his wake the way other people left footprints. The studio became Kendrick's second home, third home really. After Compton and the apartment he barely slept in, he would arrive at noon and leave at dawn, filling notebooks with verses, experimenting with flows, trying to find the version of himself that belonged in this new world. But the more time he spent in the studio, the more he noticed the gap between what he wanted to make and what the label wanted to sell. Kendrick tried to match Wayne's pace, could not. His process was different. He needed time to think, needed silence to hear what he was trying to say, needed space to let the words find their shape before he committed them to recordings. You think too much, Wayne said one night after Kendrick had spent 3 hours on a single verse. Sometimes you just got to let it flow. Trust the instinct. My instinct is to think, Kendrick said. Wayne laughed. The raspy, knowing laugh of someone who had been in the game long enough to recognize stubbornness. Then think faster. He said, "The industry does not wait for perfection, it waits for content. You can polish later. Right now you need to prove you exist." That conversation stayed with Kendrick, nagged at him because it highlighted a fundamental tension between what he wanted to do and what the industry needed him to do. He wanted to make art. They needed him to make product. For the moment, the two were aligned. His first project under Young Money was supposed to be an album called Section. He had been working on the concept for years, an exploration of his generation, the children born in the Reagan era, raised on crack cocaine economics and trickle-down abandonment. The music was dense, the lyrics were layered, the vision was artistic in ways that made the label nervous. "This is not radio," Cortez said after hearing the first batch of songs. "This is not something we can push to mainstream outlets. Where are the hooks? Where are the features that will generate attention?" "The hooks are in the stories," Kendrick said. "The feature is the truth." Cortez sighed, the sigh of someone who had been through this conversation before with artists who did not understand how the industry worked. "Kendrick," he said, "I believe in your talent. Wayne believes in your talent, but belief does not pay the bills. We need to sell records. We need to generate buzz. That means compromises. That means giving people what they want to hear while you slip in what you need to say. So I water it down. So you make it accessible. There is a difference, but there was not a difference. Not really." Kendrick knew what Cortez was asking, knew that the dense literary approach he had been developing would need to be smoothed out, simplified, made digestible for audiences who were not willing to work for their music. The meetings multiplied. Marketing people joined the conversations. Focus groups were conducted. Data was analyzed. Every creative decision was filtered through the lens of commercial viability. "We need a single," Cortez explained, "something that can get radio play, something that introduces Kendrick Lamar to the mainstream audience." "I have singles," Kendrick said. "ADHD, Rigor Mortis, He Power. Those are album tracks. They are not radio singles. We need something with a hook, something people can remember after hearing it once, something that makes them want to buy the album." Kendrick felt something tighten in his chest, the same feeling he had gotten when he signed the contract, the feeling that something important was being traded away. "What if I do not want to make that kind of music?" "Then you stay underground," Cortez said simply. "You stay a critical darling with no sales. You stay the artist that other artists respect, but audiences have never heard of." "Is that what you want?" No, that was not what he wanted. He wanted what everyone wanted, to be heard, to matter, to have his words reach the people who needed them most. But was this the cost? Smoothing out the edges, simplifying the message, becoming accessible instead of authentic? He pushed back at first, fought for his vision, won some battles and lost others. The album that eventually emerged was still recognizably his, but the edges had been sanded, the concepts had been clarified, the production had been brightened to fit radio formats. A feature from Drake was added. The irony was not lost on anyone. The artist who had been passed over for Kendrick was now being added to Kendrick's album to boost its commercial appeal. The two had never met. The verse was recorded separately and stitched together by engineers who specialized in making strangers sound like collaborators. It sold well, not blockbuster numbers, but respectable for a debut. The critics praised it as a promising start. The streets acknowledged it as authentic. Kendrick did interviews and promo runs and watched his name grow from local legend to national conversation piece. But something was wrong. He felt it in the studio, felt it in the meetings, felt it in the slow erosion of the thing that had made Wayne want to sign him in the first place. Every decision was filtered through commercial consideration. Every creative impulse was measured against market research. Every bar he wrote was evaluated not for its truth, but for its saleability. The success of Section had created pressure that Kendrick had not anticipated. The label wanted more, always more. More music, more content, more interviews, more appearances, more of everything that could be converted into attention, and attention converted into money. Kendrick found himself on a treadmill that never stopped. recording sessions that stretched through nights, promotional tours that crossed time zones, interviews where he answered the same questions over and over until the words lost meaning. Tell us about Compton. Tell us about your influences. Tell us what makes you different. Tell us your story. He told it so many times that it started to feel like fiction, like someone else's life that he had memorized rather than lived. The version he presented in interviews was true, but it was also curated, shaped for consumption, made palatable for audiences who wanted inspiration without discomfort. The real Compton was not inspiring, was not palatable, was not a story with a happy ending and lessons learned. The real Compton was messy and violent and full of people who would never escape, no matter how talented they were, no matter how hard they worked. But that version did not fit the narrative the label was selling, did not match the image of Kendrick Lamar, rising star, voice of his generation, the kid who made it out. So he smoothed the edges, simplified the truth, became the version of himself that the industry wanted him to be. He called his mother one night, lying on the bed in his Miami apartment, staring at the ceiling. "Mama," he said, "I do not know if I did the right thing." "What do you mean, baby?" "The label, the deal. They keep asking me to change things, to make my music easier to understand. And I have been doing it because I thought that was how it worked. But I am starting to feel like I'm losing myself, like the thing that made me special is being traded for the thing that makes me successful." His mother was quiet for a long time, the kind of quiet that precedes wisdom. "Let me ask you something," she said finally. "When you were little, you used to write in your notebook every day. You remember that?" "Yes. And I used to ask you what you were writing about, and you always said the same thing. You said, 'Everything I see, Mama. I am writing about everything I see.' You remember?" "Yes." "Is that still true? Are you still writing about everything you see? Or are you writing about what they tell you to see?" Kendrick did not answer, could not answer, because the truth was complicated. He was still writing from his perspective, still documenting his observations, but the lens had shifted. The focus had been adjusted by hands that were not his own. "Baby," his mother continued, "I cannot tell you what to do. You are a grown man now. You make your own choices. But I can tell you this, the thing that makes you special is not your voice or your flow or even your words. It is your honesty. It is the fact that you see things other people are afraid to see, and you say them anyway. If you lose that, all the success in the world will not matter because you will not be you anymore. What if I have already lost it? Then you find it again. You are my son. You are from Compton. We do not quit. We do not give up. We adapt. We survive. And we always find our way back to who we are." Kendrick closed his eyes, let his mother's words settle into him like medicine. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. Now get some sleep. And tomorrow, you write something true. Something that scares you. Something that reminds you why you started doing this in the first place." He hung up, lay there in the dark for a long time. Then he got up, opened his notebook, and started writing something true. The notebook filled over the next few weeks, pages and pages of raw, unfiltered observation, things he could not say in interviews, things the label would never approve, things that scared him to admit even to himself. He wrote about the guilt of success, about watching his friends stay stuck while he moved on, about the fear that he was becoming exactly what he had promised himself he would never become, about the feeling that every compromise was a small death and he was dying by inches. He showed the pages to no one. They were too honest, too dangerous, the kind of writing that could end a career if it fell into the wrong hands. But they were also the first true things he had written in months, and that meant something, even if he could not figure out what yet. The second album changed everything, just not in the way anyone expected. Kendrick had fought for it, had pushed against the label's requests for features and singles and radio-friendly production, had locked himself in the studio for months, and emerged with something called Good Kid, Mod City, a concept album about growing up in Compton, a narrative that traced a single day in his teenage life, from innocence through violence, through survival. It was the album he had always wanted to make, dense and layered and challenging in ways that required active listening. The kind of project that critics would study and dissect and argue about for years. The label hated it, not hated. They understood its artistry, could see the critical acclaim it would generate, but they had invested millions in Kendrick Lamar, and they needed returns that justified the investment. This is not commercial, Cortez said in the meeting where the album was presented. This is a passion project, an artistic statement. We need something people can dance to. The conference room was filled with executives and marketing people and data analysts who had charts showing what kind of music was trending. They had projections and focus group results and algorithms that predicted success based on tempo and song length and hook frequency. Kendrick looked around the room, at the expensive suits, at the coffee cups and water bottles with corporate logos, at the faces of people who had never been to Compton, who had never lost friends to gang violence, who had never understood why someone would need to tell these stories in exactly this way. "Wayne," Kendrick said, "you signed me because you heard something different, because you believed in the vision. This is the vision. This is what I came here to make." Wayne stirred in his corner. His red eyes met Kendrick's across the conference table. "It is dope," Wayne said slowly. "No question. But Cortez is not wrong. The industry has shifted since I signed you. Streaming is changing everything. Attention spans are shorter. People do not want to sit with an album for an hour anymore. They want moments, clips, things they can share and move on from. So I am supposed to make TikTok music? No. You are supposed to find a way to be yourself that also works in the current landscape. It is not either or. It is both. The artists who figure out how to do that are the ones who last." Kendrick felt something break inside him, something small but important. The belief that he could do this on his own terms, the faith that talent was enough. "What do you want me to change?" he asked. Cortez slid a piece of paper across the table, a list of suggestions that was really a list of demands. More accessible production, a feature from Drake or Cole or someone with radio presence, at least 2 songs that could be cut to under 3 minutes for single release. "We released the album with these changes," Cortez said, "and we put the full machine behind it. Promotion, tour support, everything. Without the changes, we do a limited release, see how it performs, adjust expectations accordingly." Kendrick looked at the list, looked at Wayne, looked at the window where Miami sunlight was streaming through with the indifference of a world that would keep turning regardless of what he decided. He thought about his mother, about Compton, about the notebooks full of truth he had been filling since he was 7 years old. Then he thought about the contract he had signed, the publishing he had given away, the years of his life he had committed to this label and this machine and this version of success that was slowly grinding him down. "I will make the changes," he said. The words tasted like surrender, like the first step down a path that led somewhere he did not want to go. But what choice did he have? "Good," Cortez said, already moving on to the next item on his agenda. "We will reconvene next week to review the updated versions. In the meantime, start thinking about visuals. We want to roll out a single with a video that establishes the aesthetic." The meeting ended. People filed out. Wayne lingered for a moment, his hand on Kendrick's shoulder. "I know this is hard," Wayne said. "I know it feels like you are selling out, but trust me. This is how you stay in the game long enough to do what you really want to do. You pay your dues now. You get your leverage later, then you make whatever you want. What if later never comes? What if I keep making compromises until there's nothing left to compromise?" Wayne did not answer, just squeezed Kendrick's shoulder and walked out. Kendrick sat alone in the conference room for a long time. Outside, the sun continued to shine. Inside, something was dying. He did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of the end. The changes were harder than Kendrick anticipated. It was not just about adding hooks or shortening songs. It was about changing the essence of what he had created. Every edit felt like surgery. Every compromise felt like amputation. He spent 3 weeks reworking the album, added the features the label requested, brightened the production on tracks that had been intentionally dark, cut verses that were too long, too complex, too demanding of the listener's attention. The version that emerged was still recognizably Good Kid, Mad City. The narrative was intact, the concept survived, but the hedges were gone. The discomfort had been smoothed away. The parts that would have made listeners work had been replaced with parts that let them coast. He played the new version for his mother over the phone. She listened in silence. When it was over, she did not speak for a long moment. "It sounds good, baby," she finally said. Professional, like something you would hear on the radio. But it does not sound like you. Not completely. It sounds like you trying to sound like someone the radio would play. That is the point, mama. They want me to be accessible. I know, baby. I know. Just be careful, okay? Be careful that accessible does not become empty. Be careful that trying to reach everyone does not mean you stop saying anything. He promised to be careful, but he was already too far down the path to turn back. The album released to massive expectations. Young Money had done their job. The marketing machine had churned out content for months. Features from Nicki Minaj and a verse from Drake that felt phoned in but looked good on. The track list. The singles had been carefully selected and strategically released to build momentum. Good Kid, Mad City entered the charts at number 2. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Critics called it a masterwork of storytelling, a modern classic. The best hip-hop album of the decade, Kendrick should have been triumphant, should have been celebrating the validation of everything he had been working towards since childhood. Instead, he felt hollow. The album that existed was not the album he had made. It was a version, a translation, something that had been filtered through so many hands and adjusted by so many voices that he no longer knew which parts were his and which parts belonged to the machine. The features he had not wanted were there. The production he had not chosen was there. The compromises he had made in that conference room were woven throughout like stitches in a wound. And the worst part was that people loved it. They did not know they were hearing a diluted version. Did not know that the Kendrick they were praising was a character he had been coached to play. They thought they were witnessing authenticity. They thought they were hearing truth. Only Kendrick knew the difference, and that knowledge was eating him alive. The tour was successful. The awards came rolling in. The money accumulated in accounts that Kendrick did not check because looking at numbers made him feel sick. Everything he had ever wanted was happening, and all he could think about was what he had traded to get it. He started drinking, not heavily at first, just a glass of something to take the edge off before shows, something to help him become the version of Kendrick Lamar that audiences expected. Then the glass became a bottle, and the bottle became a habit, and the habit became a way of surviving days that felt increasingly meaningless. His mother noticed on a video call, saw something in his eyes that had not been there before. "Baby," she said, "are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mama, just tired. Touring takes a lot out of you." But he was not fine, and she knew he was not fine. And they both pretended the lie was true because the alternative was too frightening to face. The label wanted a third album quickly, wanted to capitalize on the momentum while Kendrick was hot. They presented him with a timeline that was aggressive and a list of producers that was predetermined and a vision for his career that felt like a prison sentence. "We are thinking something more accessible this time," Cortez said. "The last album was critically acclaimed, but it was not a streaming monster. We need numbers, big numbers, chart-topping numbers. So you want me to make pop music? We want you to make Kendrick Lamar music that performs like pop music. There is a difference." But there was not a difference. Not anymore. Kendrick had learned that the industry's vocabulary was designed to obscure rather than illuminate. Accessible meant dumbed down, commercially. Viable meant soulless. Strategic meant controlled. He nodded along in the meetings, agreed to the timelines, accepted the producer placements, and every night he went back to his apartment and drank until he could not think about what he was becoming. The third album was called Butterfly. It was supposed to be about transformation, about emerging from the cocoon of the streets into something beautiful and free. But the metamorphosis Kendrick actually experienced was the opposite. He was becoming less than he had been, smaller, more contained, more palatable for consumption. He tried to fight for the vision, tried to make something meaningful despite the constraints, but the constraints were everywhere now. In the studio, in the meetings, in his own head, where a voice kept whispering that maybe they were right, maybe the changes were necessary, maybe this was just how the industry worked. He wrote verses and deleted them, recorded hooks and scrapped them, spent weeks on songs that never saw release because they were not commercial enough, not accessible enough, not what the algorithm wanted to hear. The album that emerged was competent, professional, the kind of music that filled playlists without demanding attention. It had hooks that stuck and production that sparkled and features from artists whose names would drive streams. But it did not have soul, did not have the thing that had made Wayne want to sign him in the first place, did not have Kendrick. The album was a disaster, not commercially. It sold respectably, had its moments, got some radio play. The features helped, the marketing helped. The machine did what the machine was built to do, but the magic was gone. The thing that had made critics call him a generational talent was absent. In its place was competence, professionalism, music that was good enough without being special. The reviews were mixed. Some critics praised his continued growth. Others questioned whether he had lost his edge. Few were brutal, calling the album a disappointment from an artist who had once seemed destined for greatness. The conversation around Kendrick Lamar shifted from is he the best to what happened to him. Wayne called after the reviews came out. "You okay?" he asked. "I am fine," Kendrick lied. "It is just one album. I will do better next time." But he did not believe that, and he suspected Wayne did not believe it either. The problem was not effort. The problem was not talent. The problem was that Kendrick had become something he never wanted to be. A product, a brand, a version of himself designed by committee and executed by obligation. He had traded his soul for success, and now the success was fading, but the soul was still gone. In Toronto, Drake was watching Kendrick's decline with complicated feelings. He had built his own empire by then, had found a different path, a sound that blended rap and singing in ways that critics mocked at first and then celebrated when the numbers became undeniable. Had created something uniquely his own precisely because the traditional path had been closed to him. There was satisfaction in that, in knowing that the rejection that had devastated him had actually been a blessing in disguise, in watching the artist who had taken his spot struggle while his own career soared. But there was also something else, something that felt almost like sympathy. Drake understood what Kendrick was going through, understood the pressure of expectation, the weight of being called the best, the way success could feel like a prison if you let other people define what it meant. He thought about reaching out, about calling Kendrick and offering something, support, advice, just acknowledgement from someone who understood the game at the highest level. But he did not. They were not friends, were barely acquaintances, were two people whose paths had diverged from a single moment and who were now living in parallel universes that occasionally intersected at award shows and industry events. Besides, what would he say? "I am sorry you are struggling. I know how hard it is." Those words would feel like gloating even if they were sincere. So Drake said nothing, made more music, built his empire, and watched Kendrick Lamar slowly fade from the conversation that had once been dominated by his name. The industry is cruel like that, builds people up just to tear them down, celebrates potential just to punish his failure to materialize, creates heroes just to create cautionary tales. Kendrick was becoming a cautionary tale, and everyone could see it except him. The breaking point came 18 months after Butterfly. Kendrick was in the studio, trying to work on what would be his fourth album. The label had given him more freedom this time, perhaps sensing that the tight control had contributed to his decline. But freedom was meaningless when you no longer knew who you were. He sat at the console, staring at an empty screen, had been sitting there for 4 hours, had not written a single word. The studio was state-of-the-art. Equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars surrounded him. Microphones that captured every nuance of sound, software that could manipulate audio in ways that seemed like magic. Everything a rapper could want, but the words would not come. They used to flow from him like water from a spring. In Compton, he would write 3 songs before breakfast, on the bus to school, on the walk home, in his room while his mother prayed in the next room. Words had been his constant companion, his escape, his salvation. Now the well was dry. The spring had been poisoned by compromise and marketing meetings and the slow erosion of everything that had once made him special. The engineer, a patient man named Chris who had worked with Kendrick since the beginning, finally spoke. "You want to take a break? Maybe come back tomorrow." Kendrick did not answer, just kept staring at the screen where words were supposed to appear. Chris left him alone. The studio was silent except for the hum of equipment and the distant sound of Miami traffic. Kendrick thought about Compton, about his mother's kitchen with the blue table, about the notebooks he had filled as a child, documenting everything he saw because a teacher had told him his thoughts mattered. He had not written in a notebook in years, had not documented anything except what the label approved, had not said anything true since when had it been? Since before the signing? Since before Miami? Since before success came and swallowed him whole? He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, stopped on his mother's name. It was 3 a.m. in Compton. She would be asleep. He should not call. He called anyway. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep but immediately alert with maternal concern. "Baby, what is wrong? I cannot do this anymore, Mama." "Cannot do what?" "Any of it. The music, the label, the version of myself I have become. I do not know who I am anymore. I do not know what I believe. I do not know why I am doing any of this." His mother was quiet for a long time. Kendrick could hear her breathing, could hear the same walls he had grown up within surrounding her, could hear the neighborhood outside, silent at this hour, holding its secrets like always. "Come home," she said finally. "I cannot. I have obligations, contracts, people depending on me. Baby, listen to me. You are the only one you are obligated to. You are the only one you have to live with every day. If this is killing you, you walk away, you come home, you figure out who you are again. Everything else is just details. What about the money, the career, everything we work for? What about your soul? What about the boy who used to write about everything he saw because he could not help himself? What about my son, who I have not recognized in interviews for 2 years? Is all that money worth? Losing yourself?" Kendrick started crying, could not stop. The tears came from somewhere deep, somewhere that had been locked away since he signed that contract and started pretending. "I do not know how to find myself again," he said. "I do not know where I went." "Then come home," his mother repeated. "Compton has not changed. Your room is still here. Your notebooks are still in the closet. Everything you were before Miami is waiting for you. You just have to be brave enough to come back." Kendrick hung up the phone, sat in the studio for another hour, crying, thinking, trying to figure out what brave meant. Then he opened a new document on the computer, started typing a letter of resignation, a request to be released from his contract. He did not know if the label would agree, did not know what the legal implication would be, did not know anything except that he was dying in Miami, and the only chance he had was to go back to the place where he had once been alive. The letter took 3 hours to write. When it was done, he sent it to Cortez and Wayne and everyone else in the Young Money hierarchy who had a stake in his future. Then he went back to his apartment, packed a bag with 3 changes of clothes, his notebook, and the Bible his mother had given him. And he flew home. The label fought the release, of course. Contracts were contracts. Millions had been invested. Legal proceedings were threatened. Lawyers called lawyers. Emails flew back and forth. The machinery of the industry, which had been designed to make stars, now threatened to grind Kendrick into dust. But Wayne intervened. In a move that surprised everyone, including Kendrick, Wayne personally advocated for the release, went to Birdman, made the case that keeping an unwilling artist was worse than letting them go, that Kendrick's brand was damaged enough without the additional negative publicity of a legal battle. "He is done," Wayne told the executives in a meeting that Kendrick was not present for, but heard about later. You can see it in his eyes. We can hold him to the contract, but we cannot make him give us anything worth releasing. Better to let him go now and preserve whatever goodwill exists. Maybe he comes back someday. Maybe he does not. But keeping him prisoner is not going to get us what we want." The label agreed, reluctantly, with conditions. Kendrick would forfeit certain royalties, would give up any claim to the masters of his first 2 albums, would be bound by non-disparagement clauses that prevented him from publicly criticizing Young Money. The conditions were harsh, punitive, the industry punishing someone for trying to leave, but Kendrick did not care, would have signed anything, just wanted out, just wanted to breathe air that did not taste like compromise. He signed everything, did not even read most of it, just wanted to feel the weight lift from his shoulders, just wanted to remember what it felt like to be free. The release was announced quietly, a brief statement about creative differences and mutual agreement to part ways. The industry noticed, the blog speculated, but there was no scandal, no drama, just another artist who had not worked out, quietly disappearing from the roster. Kendrick flew back to Compton on a Tuesday morning. His mother was waiting at LAX, looking older than he remembered, wearing the same purple dress she had worn to his signing. She did not say anything when she saw him, just opened her arms. And Kendrick fell into them the way he had when he was 5 years old, and the world was too scary, and she was the only safe place he knew. He cried in the airport, did not care who saw, did not care that he was supposed to be famous, supposed to be strong, supposed to be the voice of his generation. None of that mattered. All that mattered was his mother's arms around him and the knowledge that he was finally going home. They drove back to Compton in silence. The streets looked the same. The palm, trees, the liquor stores, the corners where people gathered, and lives intersected in ways that could heal or kill depending on the day. His mother's house looked the same too. The blue table was still in the kitchen. His room was still at the end of the hall. His notebooks were still in the closet, stacked in boxes that she had never thrown away, despite offers from collectors who wanted to buy pieces of his history. He went to his room, closed the door, lay on the bed where he had written his first verses as a child, and he slept. For 3 days, Kendrick did nothing but sleep and eat and stare at the ceiling. His mother brought him food without asking questions. His father, who had drifted back into their lives in recent years, came by once to sit quietly in the living room, offering presents without demands. On the 4th day, Kendrick opened one of the boxes in his closet, pulled out a notebook from when he was 12 years old. The pages were filled with handwriting he barely recognized as his own. Observations about the neighborhood, stories about people he had known, questions about God and violence, and whether anything he did would ever matter. He read for hours, read about a child who saw the world clearly and reported on it without fear, read about honesty that had not yet learned to be cautious, read about himself before the industry got its hands on him, and somewhere in those pages, he found a spark, a tiny flame that had not quite been extinguished despite everything that had happened. He pulled out a fresh notebook, one his mother had bought and left on his desk, hoping. He started writing, not about fame, not about the industry, not about what people expected him to say, just about everything he saw. The way the light came through his childhood window, the sound of his mother praying in the other room, the weight of failure, and the strange lightness that came with finally letting go. The words came slowly at first, then faster, then so fast his hand cramped and he had to stop and stretch and start again. By morning, he had filled half the notebook. It was not an album. It was not a comeback. It was not anything that could be marketed or sold or turned into content. It was just truth, just Kendrick, just the thing he had lost and was slowly beginning to find again. He did not know what would happen next, did not know if he would ever make music professionally again, did not know anything except that for the first time in years, he felt alive. And for now, that was enough. The years passed like water, finding its own level, slowly, inevitably. Without the drama that had defined his time in Miami, Kendrick stayed in Compton, moved back into his mother's house at first, then eventually into a small apartment a few blocks away. Nothing fancy. 2 rooms, a view of the street where he had grown up, the sound of the neighborhood at night, familiar and comforting in ways that luxury could never match. He made occasional music, not for labels, not for streaming platforms, just for himself, for the people in the neighborhood who remembered when he was just another kid with notebooks and dreams. He would play shows at small venues, community centers, the kind of places that did not care about marketing budgets or album cycles. The audiences were small, devoted, the kind of fans who had loved him before the industry got involved and loved him still now that the industry had moved on. They sang along to verses that had never been released officially, songs that existed only because Kendrick had played them at these intimate shows. He never achieved the mainstream success that had once seemed inevitable, never again appeared on magazine covers or award show stages or in conversations about the best rappers alive. The industry had a short memory, and Kendrick had been gone long enough to be forgotten by everyone except those who cared about substance over spectacle. But he wrote every day, filled notebooks with observations and stories, and the kind of truth that he had almost forgotten how to tell, taught occasional workshops at community centers where he showed young people that words could be power if wielded correctly. He became, in the industry's terms, a mid-level rapper, someone who had peaked early and faded, someone mentioned in retrospectives as a cautionary tale about what happens when talent meets the wrong machine at the wrong time. The blogs wrote think pieces about his decline. Industry analysts used his case study in presentations about artist development and commercial strategy. His name became shorthand for wasted potential, for the dangers of signing too early, for the gap between artistic vision and market reality. But Kendrick did not see it that way, did not experience his life as a failure. He saw a man who had been swallowed by something larger than himself and had somehow found a way to escape. A man who had traded one definition of success for another and discovered that the second definition fit him better. The money was tight sometimes. The publishing he had signed away meant that his biggest songs earned for the label rather than for him. Royalty checks came quarterly, small reminders of what he had given up in that conference room years ago. But he had enough, had learned that enough was a different number than he had once believed. Enough meant rent paid and food on the table and time to write without deadline pressure. Enough meant freedom, even if it was a smaller freedom than the industry had promised. His mother still lived in the same house, still worked, though less now that age was catching up with her, still prayed every night for her children. Though the prayers had changed, she no longer asked God to make Kendrick famous. She asked God to keep him whole. His father came around more often. The streets had finally released him, returned him to his family like a hostage freed after a long captivity. He was older now, quieter, carried regrets that he did not know how to express. But he showed up, sat at the blue table and ate meals, and tried to make up for lost time. The family was not perfect, was not healed, but it was present. And presence was something Kendrick had learned to value in ways he never had when success was pulling him in 1,000 directions. Kendrick got married eventually, a woman named Maya, who had grown up in the neighborhood and had known him before any of this started. She remembered when he was just Kenny, the quiet kid who always had a notebook in his hand. She had watched him rise and fall and rise again in a different way, and she loved all of it. Their wedding was small, held in the backyard of his mother's house, surrounded by family and friends who had been there through everything. Wayne sent flowers but did not attend. Drake sent nothing, which was probably for the best. They had children, a son first, then a daughter, named them, for ancestors and hopes and the future they were trying to build. Watched them grow up in the same neighborhood where Kendrick had grown up. Though things were slightly better now, slightly safer, progress measured in inches rather than miles. He taught his children about words, about truth, about the importance of seeing clearly and reporting honestly, even when the world wanted you to look away. He gave them notebooks for their birthdays and read their writings with the same attention he had once given to his own. The son wanted to be a rapper, of course, had heard his father's old songs and thought he understood what that life meant. Kendrick let him dream, but also warned him, told him about the industry, about contracts and compromises, and the cost of success that nobody advertised. Make sure the music serves you, Kendrick told him. Make sure you are never so desperate that you will sign anything. Make sure you know who you are before you let anyone try to change you. The son listened, or did not listen. Children rarely do, not fully, not until they have made their own mistakes and learned their own lessons. But the words were planted, seeds that might grow someday into wisdom. The daughter wanted to be a doctor, had inherited her grandmother's practicality, her need to help people in concrete ways. Kendrick supported her completely, celebrated every academic achievement, knew that success came in many forms, and the kind she was pursuing was more lasting than anything he had ever achieved. Sometimes, late at night, he would pull out his old albums and listen, would hear the compromises embedded in the music, would remember the meetings and the pressure and the slow grinding down of everything that had made him special. He did not regret it, exactly. The experience had taught him things he could not have learned any other way, had shown him who he was by showing him who he was not willing to become. But he wondered sometimes what would have happened if he had been stronger, if he had refused the compromises, if he had walked away before they changed him. Would the world have a different Kendrick Lamar to remember? One who had achieved everything he was capable of achieving? One who had become the voice of his generation instead of a footnote in his history? He would never know. That version of himself existed only in theory, in the multiverse of possibilities that branched from every choice. What he knew was this: he was alive, he was writing, he was surrounded by people who loved him for who he was rather than what he could produce. That was not the success he had imagined when he stepped off that plane in Miami, but it was a success nonetheless, a smaller success, a quieter one, but real in ways that the other success had never been. In Toronto, Drake became the biggest artist in the world. The rejection from Young Money had been a catalyst, had forced him to develop a sound that no one else was making, had given him the hunger that comes from being told no by people who were supposed to say yes. He released albums that broke records, dominated streaming platforms, became the template that 1,000 lesser artists tried to copy. His face was everywhere. His music was everywhere. His influence on the genre was so complete that people forgot there had been a time when it was not so. The softness that critics had mocked became his signature. The singing that seemed unmarketable became the new standard. The vulnerability that felt like weakness became the strength that connected him to millions of listeners who had never felt seen by hip-hop before. He built an empire, multiple labels, business ventures, a brand that extended far beyond music into fashion and culture and the very definition of what a rapper could be. And sometimes, in interviews, he was asked about Kendrick Lamar, about the artist who had taken the spot that was supposed to be his. Drake always gave diplomatic answers, praised Kendrick's early work, said something vague about everyone having their own journey, acknowledged the talent while avoiding the comparisons that journalists were always fishing for. But privately, he thought about it more than he would admit, thought about the randomness of it, the way one meeting, one decision, one person's preference had shaped both their lives in such different directions. If Young Money had signed him instead, would he have become what Kendrick became? Would the machine have ground him down too? Or would his particular talents have navigated the industry in ways that Kendrick's could not? He would never know, just as Kendrick would never know what he might have become if the door had never opened. That was the cruel mathematics of success. Every yes contained a no for someone else. Every path taken was a path not taken by everyone who stood at the same crossroads. Drake kept making music, kept winning, kept being everything the industry wanted him to be. And sometimes, very late at night, when the parties were over and the houses were empty and the success felt more like weight than gift, he wondered if Kendrick had actually gotten the better deal, wondered if being released from the machine was a form of freedom that Drake would never experience. Then morning came, and there were obligations to meet, and the wondering got filed away with all the other things that success did not have time to examine. The music industry moved on, always did, always would. Young Money continued to sign artists and release projects. Some succeeded, some failed. The ratio was about what it had always been, the mathematics of an industry that consumed far more than it created. Lil Wayne remained a legend, continued to be cited as an influence by generations of rappers who had grown up on his music. His legacy was secure in ways that did not depend on any single decision he had made. Rarely talked about Kendrick Lamar in interviews, but those who knew him said he kept a copy of Section 8 in his personal collection. The original version, the one before the compromises, said it was a reminder of what could have been and also of the limitations of even the most well-intentioned machines. Nicki Minaj became one of the most successful female rappers of all time. Mentioned once in an interview that Kendrick had given her advice early on, something about showing them the monster underneath. Said it was the best advice anyone had ever given her, even if the person who gave it had not been able to follow it himself. The blogs and documentaries eventually came, retrospectives on the era, analyses of what went wrong with Kendrick's career, think pieces about the industry's tendency to consume its most talented artists. Kendrick did not participate in any of them, did not want to relitigate the past, did not want to be a cautionary tale or a symbol or anything other than what he was: a man who wrote, a father who was present, a husband who was faithful, a member of the community that still remembered what he had meant to them before the world got involved. The money had never been as much as people assumed. The publishing he had signed away meant that his biggest songs earned for the label rather than for him. But he had enough, had learned that enough was a different number than he had once believed. His children grew up without wealth, but without want. Learned from their father that words were power, and that truth was worth more than trends. Some of them wrote, some did not. All of them knew they were loved. That was the ending that Kendrick Lamar got. Not the ending anyone predicted when Wayne first heard his demo, not the ending the machine was designed to produce, but an ending nonetheless. A real one, true, in ways that mattered to the only person who had to live with it. In the multiverse of possibilities, there is a version of this story where everything went differently, where Kendrick Lamar never signed to Young Money, where he stayed with Top Dawg and developed at his own pace, where the albums that made him legendary were released without compromise and received with the recognition they deserved. In that version, Kendrick becomes everything he was supposed to become: the voice of his generation, the artist who proved that substance could win, the Pulitzer Prize winner who changed what the world thought hip-hop could be. That version exists somewhere, in theory, in the mathematics of branching timelines, in the dreams of fans who wondered what happened to the kid from Compton who had seemed destined for greatness. But this is not that version. This is the version where a young man from Compton was given an opportunity too soon by people who did not understand how to nurture what made him special, where he was changed by a machine that was designed to produce products rather than artists, where he almost lost himself entirely before finding a way back to who he had always been. It is a sadder version, a quieter one, without the triumphant moments that make good documentaries, without the stadium tours and the presidential endorsements and the cultural impact that scholars would study for decades. But it is also a true version, one that happens more often than the success stories admit, one that deserves to be told because the artists who are consumed by the industry are just as important as the artists who survive it. Kendrick Lamar was supposed to be the greatest rapper of his generation. Everyone who heard his early work agreed on that. The potential was undeniable. The talent was transcendent. The voice was singular in ways that made comparisons seem pointless. But potential is not destiny. And talent is not enough when the systems designed to amplify it are also designed to control it. When the price of admission is your authenticity. When the cost of success is your soul. He sits now in his late 30s in the same house where he grew up. His children are asleep. His wife is reading in the next room. The neighborhood outside is quiet in that 3 a.m. way that he has never stopped loving. He pulls out his notebook, the latest in a series that stretches back to childhood. It is half filled with verses that no one but him will ever read. He opens to a fresh page, clean lines, waiting for words, and he starts writing about everything he sees. The way the streetlight falls through his window, the sound of his daughter breathing in her sleep, the weight of a life that did not go as planned, but went as it went. The words come easily now, have always come easily. That part of him was never lost, even when everything else was. He writes until morning, until his hand cramps and his coffee goes cold and the house starts waking up around him. Then he closes the notebook, makes breakfast for his children, kisses his wife, and lives another day in the small, true life he has built from the ruins of a larger one. This is not the story anyone wanted for Kendrick Lamar, but it is the story he got. And somewhere in that gap between wanting and getting, between potential and outcome, between what should have been and what actually was, there is a lesson. The industry eats what it claims to love. The machine produces what it is designed to produce. And the only way to survive is to either become what they want you to become or to walk away before they finish changing you. Kendrick walked away. Too late to be who he might have been, but early enough to be someone. That has to count for something. In the mathematics of broken dreams and small salvations, it has to count for something. Drake never sent that message of sympathy. Years later, at an award show where they were both presenting in different segments, they passed each other backstage. Two men who had been connected by a single moment decades ago, now living in such different worlds that they might as well have been strangers. Drake was there as a presenter, one of the biggest stars in the world, lending his presence to a show that needed his fame more than he needed its validation. Kendrick was there as an honoree, a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to hip-hop culture, the kind of award they give to artists whose best work is behind them, a consolation prize for the career that might have been. They saw each other in the hallway. Neither had expected it. Neither knew what to say. Drake nodded. Kendrick nodded back. No words were exchanged. None were needed. They both knew what the other represented. The path taken, the path not taken, the version of success that came from being chosen and the version that came from being rejected. For a moment, something passed between them. Not friendship, not animosity, just recognition. The acknowledgement of shared history, of parallel lives, of the randomness that had shaped them both in such different ways. Then the moment passed. Handlers appeared. People with clipboards and headsets ushered them in different directions, toward different stages, toward different versions of the same industry. Kendrick walked to his car and drove back to Compton. Drake walked to his limousine and drove to a mansion that was too big for one person, but that he had earned through years of being exactly what the industry wanted. The sky above Los Angeles was the same for both of them, the same stars, the same moon, the same city that had made and unmade them in different ways. But the lives beneath that sky could not have been more different. One was full of everything money could buy, and empty in ways that money could not fill. One was modest by industry standards and rich in ways that had nothing to do with standards. Neither was wholly happy. Neither was wholly sad. They were just human, complicated, shaped by circumstances beyond their control and choices within it. That is all anyone is, really. Just human, doing the best they can with what they are given, trying to survive the machines that want to use them, trying to find something true in worlds built on performance, trying, in the end, to be someone worth being. The multiverse never sleeps. More alternate histories await, more versions of these stories exist in the infinite branches of what might have been, but this version is finished now. This telling is complete. Kendrick Lamar, Signed to Young Money in 2008, consumed by the machine, released by choice, reduced by circumstance, but still writing, still true, still in the small ways that matter most, himself. That is not the victory anyone imagined, but it is a victory nonetheless. The only kind that actually counts. The kind you earn by surviving what was supposed to destroy you. The kind you keep by never forgetting who you were before they tried to change you. The kind that lives in notebooks no one will ever read. And in children who know they are loved, and in mornings that come whether you deserve them or not, and in the stubborn human refusal to be reduced to nothing, even when everything is trying to reduce you, even when the machine wins, even when the story ends smaller than it began, there is still something left. There's always something left, and that something is worth more than all the success in the world. Kendrick Lamar knows that now. Learned it the hard way, the only way it can really be learned, and in the quiet of his small, true life, he is grateful, not for what happened, but for what he saved, the part of himself that was always worth saving, the part that is writing still, right now, in a notebook in Compton, about everything he sees, about the weight of a life that did not go as planned, about the children sleeping down the hall, about the wife who loves him for who he actually is, about the neighborhood that raised him and received him back, about the industry that tried to change him and almost succeeded, about the choice he made when he could not make it anymore, about coming home, about starting over, about the word that his mother used to describe what he was doing when he wrote in his notebooks as a child. Everything, she would say. He writes about everything he sees. That is still true. After all these years, after all the compromises, after all the losses, that is still true. He writes about everything he sees, and that is enough. That has to be enough, because it is all he has left, and it is all he ever really needed. The pen in his hand, the page in front of him, the truth waiting to be told. Everything else was extra. Everything else was the industry trying to convince him that he needed more. He did not need more. He just needed this. The writing, the truth, the small true life he has built from the ruins of a larger one. This is Kendrick Lamar. This is what became of him. This is the story that nobody wanted, but that happened anyway. And it is finished now. Not with triumph, not with tragedy, just with truth. The only ending that matters, the only ending he was ever qualified to write. End need to tell the truth. That is who he is. That is who he has always been. That is who he will be until the end. A writer, a truth teller, a man who came back from the edge and found something worth living for. This is his story, not the story anyone wanted, but the story that happened. And maybe that is enough. Maybe that is the whole point. The stories that happen are not always the stories we want, but they are true. And truth is the only thing that lasts. Everything else is just noise. Everything else is just the machine trying to make us into something we are not. Kendrick Lamar knows that now, and he is at peace with it. Finally, after all this time, at peace. The fans remembered. Even after the industry moved on, even after the blogs stopped writing about him, even after his name became a footnote instead of a headline, the fans remembered. They would send messages on social media, would track him down at the small shows he played, would tell him that Section had changed their lives, that Good Kid, Mad City, even the compromised version, had helped them survive high school or prison, or the death of someone they loved. They did not care about the chart positions, did not care about the streaming numbers, did not care about the comparisons to Drake or the think pieces about wasted potential. They cared about the music, about the words, about the truth he had managed to slip through despite the machine's best efforts. Kendrick was humbled by them, by their loyalty, by the fact that something he had created, even imperfectly, had mattered to strangers he would never meet. He would talk to them after shows, would sign albums and take pictures and listen to their stories, would hear how his words had intersected with their lives in ways he never could have predicted. A young woman in Houston told him that swimming pools had saved her from alcoholism, that hearing someone articulate the seduction and the danger of drinking had given her the perspective she needed to get help. Kendrick did not tell her about his own drinking, did not want to complicate the narrative that had helped her, just thanked her and signed her album and watched her walk away with something she could hold on to. A man in Chicago told him that "Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst" had helped him process his brother's murder, that the way Kendrick wrote about death and grief and the randomness of violence in the hood had made him feel less alone in his pain. Kendrick remembered writing that song, remembered the feeling of something larger than himself moving through him, remembered thinking that this was why he made music, not for the charts, not for the label, for moments like this, for strangers who needed what he had to offer. The fans were the reason he kept going, even after the industry had moved on, even after his career had contracted to small venues and loyal audiences. They were the proof that it had mattered, that the compromises had not negated the truth, that something had gotten through. Compton received him back without judgment. The neighborhood where he had grown up, where he had witnessed the violence and poverty and love that formed the basis of everything he wrote, did not care about industry politics or commercial success, did not measure his worth by streaming numbers or chart positions. They knew him as Kenny, Mama Duck's son, the quiet kid who used to write in notebooks everywhere he went, the one who made it out and then made it back. He would walk through the streets and people would nod at him, would call out greetings, would stop to talk about nothing in particular, the weather, the Dodgers, the new development going up on Rosecrans, normal conversations, human conversations, the kind of interactions that had been impossible in Miami, where everyone wanted something and every word was potential content. He liked being anonymous again, or not anonymous exactly, but known for the right reasons, known as a member of the community rather than a celebrity passing through, known for showing up and staying and being present in ways that famous people rarely were. He started coaching Little League, not because anyone asked him to, but because he had time, and there were kids who needed coaches, and he wanted to give back in concrete ways. Spent summer evenings teaching children how to catch fly balls and swing bats and not give up when they struck out. The parents would thank him, would tell him he was making a difference, would look at him with something like respect, not for his music or his fame, but for showing up week after week and treating their children like they mattered. This was success too, a different kind, unmeasurable by any metric the industry cared about, but real, tangible. The kind of success that showed up in the lives of children who had someone believing in them. His sister Kayla had her own journey. She had watched his rise and fall from a distance, had been proud during the early years, had worried during the decline, had cried with relief when he finally came home. They had not been close during the Miami years. The industry had pulled him away from everyone who knew him before, had isolated him in a bubble of handlers and executives and people whose job was to manage rather than love. But when he came back, she was there, waiting, ready to be his sister again. They would have dinner together once a week at their mother's house, at the blue table, eating the same chicken and rice they had grown up on. Would talk about their lives, their children, their parents who were getting older, their memories of a childhood that seemed both impossibly distant and immediately present. She told him she had been scared for him, had seen the interviews where his eyes were dead and his words were hollow, had recognized the signs of someone disappearing into something too large to survive. "I prayed for you," she said, "every night. The same way Mama prays. I asked God to bring you back before it was too late." "Thank you," he said. "I think it worked." She smiled, the same smile she had when they were children, when he would show her his notebooks and she would pretend to be impressed by words she was too young to understand. "I always knew you would figure it out," she said. "You are the smartest person I know. Too smart to stay lost forever." He was not sure that was true, was not sure intelligence had anything to do with survival, but he appreciated the faith, appreciated having someone who saw him clearly, flaws and all, and loved him anyway. His father, Kenny, had his own redemption. The streets had released him eventually. Age and consequence had worn down the hold they had on him. He had returned to his family, broken but present, ready to try again. It was not easy. Years of absence had created distance that could not be closed with good intentions. Kendrick's memories of childhood were shaped by his father's absence, by the holes where a father should have been, by the questions he had been too young to ask. But they tried, had awkward conversations that got less awkward over time, sat together at family dinners and gradually learned to be in the same room without the weight of the past pressing down on them. His father did not talk about his years on the streets, did not explain or excuse or try to rewrite history, just showed up week after week trying to be present in the way he had not been before. "I am proud of you," his father said one evening, sitting on the porch of his mother's house, watching the sun set over Compton, "for coming back, for choosing this over everything they were offering you. That takes strength most people do not have." Kendrick did not know how to respond. His father had never said he was proud of him before. Not in words, maybe in gestures and glances, but never in words. "I did not have that strength," his father continued. "When the streets were offering me things, I could not say no, could not choose my family over what they were selling. You are better than me in that way, better than I ever managed to be." "I am not better," Kendrick said. "I'm just different, had different circumstances, different support, different luck, maybe, but you still made the choice, the right choice. That counts for something." They sat in silence for a while, father and son, two men who had both been consumed by systems larger than themselves, one destroyed by it, one barely surviving, both present now, both trying. It was not reconciliation in the movie sense, no tears or confessions or dramatic forgiveness, just two people learning to be in each other's lives again, slowly, imperfectly, the way real healing actually works. What is Kendrick Lamar's legacy? The industry would say he peaked early, would say he is a cautionary tale about signing too soon, about losing creative control, about the gap between potential and outcome. The critics would say he released two interesting albums that never quite achieved what they promised, would mention him in retrospectives as someone who might have been great if circumstances had been different. The fans would say he mattered, would point to songs that changed their lives, would remember shows where he performed like his life depended on it, would keep his music alive long after the industry had moved on. But Kendrick himself, what would he say? Maybe he would say that legacy is a trap, a way of measuring lives against standards that have nothing to do with living, a way of reducing a person to their output, their achievements, their position relative to others. Maybe he would say that the only legacy that matters is the one you leave with the people who know you, the children who inherit your values, the community that carries your memory, the family that gathers at the blue table and tells stories about you when you are gone. Maybe he would say that he tried, that he faced something enormous and did not survive intact, but survived, that he lost years to the machine but found his way back, that he is still writing, still telling the truth, still documenting everything he sees. That has to count as a legacy too. The survival, the return, the quiet persistence of someone who could have been destroyed and was not. Not the legacy anyone expected, not the legacy the demos promised, but a legacy nonetheless. The legacy of a man who remembered who he was, even when everyone around him was trying to make him forget. The story people remember is simple: a talented rapper signed too early and faded too fast. The real story is slower, quieter, and far more uncomfortable. What happened to Kendrick Lamar is not the story that made the headlines. It is the story that never did. It is the story of a young man who loved words more than anything, who documented everything he saw because he could not help himself, who was plucked from Compton and placed in a machine designed to convert talent into product. It is the story of compromises, dozens of them, each one small enough to justify, each one taking something that could not be recovered, until the person who emerged from the machine was not the person who had entered it. It is the story of survival, of hitting bottom and finding the strength to climb back up, of returning to the place you started and finding it unchanged, waiting, ready to receive you. It is the story of a man who sits in his house in Compton, surrounded by the family he almost lost, writing in notebooks that no one will ever read. A man who found peace in places the industry does not acknowledge. A man who measures success in ways that cannot be charted or streamed or monetized. This is Kendrick Lamar, not the version the industry wanted, not the version the headlines remember, just the version that survived. And that version is still here, still writing, still telling the truth, still documenting everything he sees until the very end. 20 years have passed since the signing. Kendrick Lamar is 53 years old now. His hair has gray in it. His hands are not as steady as they used to be. The notebooks take longer to fill because the words come slower, filtered through decades of living. But they still come. Every morning before his grandchildren wake, he sits at the blue table in his mother's house. The same table she painted when he was 12. The same house she has lived in for 40 years now. The same kitchen where he ate dinner before flying to Miami and changed everything. His mother is 81, still alive, still praying, still watching him with eyes that hold all the years of sacrifice and love and worry that motherhood contains. She does not say much anymore. Age has slowed her the way it slows everyone. But when Kendrick sits with her, holding her hand, he can feel everything she has ever felt for him. The pride, the fear, the relief that he came home, the gratitude that he is still here. I never stopped praying for you, she told him once, not long ago. Even when you were famous, even when it seemed like everything was going right. I prayed because I knew. Mothers always know. I knew something was wrong before you did. You were right, Mama. I usually am, she said, and smiled the smile he has known since childhood. His children are grown now. The son who wanted to be a rapper became a music producer instead, learned from his father's experience and chose a path that kept him behind the scenes, away from the machine that consumes performers. He makes a good living, creates music that matters to him, comes home for dinner on Sundays. The daughter became a doctor, finished medical school, works in a clinic in Compton, serving the community that raised her father. She delivers babies and treats chronic illnesses and holds hands with elderly patients who remember when the neighborhood was different, more violent, less hopeful. Kendrick is proud of them both, not for their achievements, though the achievements are considerable, for their integrity, for the way they have built lives that align with who they are, for learning the lesson he learned the hard way and applying it before the machine had a chance to teach them. His wife Maya is still here, still reading in the next room while he writes, still loving him for the person he actually is rather than the person the industry wanted him to become. They have been together for 25 years now, have watched each other age, have weathered disagreements and disappointments, and the ordinary friction of two lives pressed together, have stayed because staying was what they both wanted, because the alternative was a loneliness neither of them could face. She reads his notebooks sometimes, the ones he writes now, not the ones from the industry years. She tells him they are good, that his words still carry the weight they always carried, that age has not diminished his ability to see clearly and document honestly. He believes her because she has never lied to him, believes her because she has no reason to, believes her because after 25 years, he knows her well enough to recognize truth. Drake is still famous, still making music, still dominating charts and platforms and cultural conversations. The empire he built has only grown larger. He is what the industry wanted Kendrick to be, successful beyond measurement, everywhere at once, the template for a generation of artists who came after. They have not spoken since that moment backstage at the awards show, no reason to. Their lives have diverged so completely that connection would feel artificial, forced, a narrative the media would love but that neither of them needs. But Kendrick thinks about him sometimes, about the randomness that shaped both their lives, about the version of history where Drake was signed and Kendrick was rejected, about whether either of them ended up where they were supposed to be, or whether supposed to is a meaningless concept in a universe governed by chance and consequence. He does not envy Drake anymore. did for years, but the envy faded as he got older, replaced by something closer to understanding. Drake found his path, built something massive from the rejection that could have destroyed him. That is its own kind of triumph, its own kind of survival. Maybe they are both cautionary tales, just different kinds. Drake a warning about what success costs, Kendrick a warning about what compromise costs. Neither outcome simple, neither story complete. Wayne is gone now, died 5 years ago. The lifestyle finally caught up with him, years of excess and substances and living at a pace that human bodies were not designed to sustain. Kendrick attended the funeral, stood in a church in New Orleans surrounded by thousands of mourners, listened to eulogies that called Wayne a genius, a pioneer, a legend, all true, all incomplete. He thought about their first meeting, about Wayne's red eyes and raspy voice and the recognition that had passed between them, about the machine Wayne had built with good intentions and the way that machine had consumed them both in different ways for different reasons. "Rest easy," Kendrick said at the grave, whispering because the words were only for Wayne. "I forgive you for what happened, and I hope you can forgive me for leaving when you needed artists to prove the label was worth something." He did not know if Wayne heard, did not know if forgiveness meant anything to the dead, but it meant something to him. The release of holding on to old resentments, the letting go of blame that served no purpose. The music industry has changed since then. Streaming dominates, algorithms decide who gets heard. The machine is larger now, more efficient, better at consuming artists before they know they are being consumed. Young people ask Kendrick for advice sometimes. Aspiring rappers who heard his old music and want to know how to make it, how to avoid the traps, how to stay true. He tells them what he knows. Keep your publishing. Develop before you sign. Make sure the music serves you, not the other way around. Build slowly. Trust the process. Remember who you are. Some of them listen, some do not. The hunger that drives artists toward the industry is the same hunger that makes them vulnerable to it. You cannot eliminate the hunger, can only hope to manage it. He is at peace with his place in history. The footnote, the cautionary tale, the potential that never fully materialized. He accepts these labels now, does not fight them, does not argue with critics or correct journalists or try to reshape the narrative. The narrative is what it is. He lived his life, made his choices, arrived where he arrived. No amount of explanation will change what happened or how people remember it. But he knows something the narratives do not capture. He knows that his children love him, that his wife loves him, that his mother prays for him every night and has since before he was born, that the neighborhood knows him and respects him and counts him as one of their own. He knows that he is still writing, still filling notebooks with observations about everything he sees, still doing the thing he has done since he was 7 years old when a teacher told him his thoughts mattered. He knows that he survived, that the machine tried to consume him and failed, that he walked away before it finished the job and rebuilt a life from what was left. That is not nothing. That is actually something real and true and worth being proud of. Even if the headlines never notice, even if the narratives never acknowledge, even if the industry measures success in ways that will never capture what he has. He is Kendrick Lamar. He came from Compton. He went to Miami and almost did not come back. He writes about everything he sees, and he is still here, still writing, still true, after everything, still. There is one more thing to say, one more truth that the story demands. The industry did not set out to destroy Kendrick Lamar. No one sat in a conference room and plotted his downfall. No executive rubbed their hands together and laughed about crushing another artist. The destruction was incidental, systematic, built into the structure of an industry that measures success in numbers and treats artists as content generators. The machine did what machines do, processed input into output, optimized for metrics that had nothing to do with art. Kendrick was just raw material, talent to be refined, potential to be monetized. The machine did not hate him, did not love him, did not see him as human at all. That is the horror of it, the impersonal efficiency, The way an entire life can be consumed by systems that do not even notice the consumption. And yet something survived. The notebooks are proof. The family is proof. The quiet mornings at the blue table, writing about everything he sees. Proof that the machine did not win completely. Proof that something human persisted. Proof that even the most efficient systems cannot consume everything. There is always something left. There is always a seed that survives the fire. There is always a voice that keeps speaking after everyone has stopped listening. Kendrick Lamar is that voice now, quiet, persistent, true, speaking to notebooks that no one will read, speaking to a neighborhood that remembers, speaking to children and grandchildren who carry forward what he was, speaking still, after all these years, about everything he sees, the way he always has, the way he always will, until the very end and beyond, because words once spoken do not die. They echo, they persist, they matter. Even when the industry says they do not, even when the numbers say they do not, even when the whole world has moved on, they matter. His words matter, he matters. And that is the final truth. The truth that outlasts everything else. The truth that the machine could never take away. The truth that Kendrick Lamar carries with him every day. He matters. Not because the industry says so, not because the charts say so, not because anyone but the people who love him say so. He matters because he is here, because he survived, because he is still writing, because he is still true. That is the end of the story. Not the end anyone wanted, but the end that happened, and maybe, just maybe, the end that was supposed to happen all along,